1600.
WWRL.
New York.
An Access One communications radio station.
Hey, I appreciate you doing a touch of money for us.
It's changed my life.
Yetta Kurland's on the air. It's Yetta Kurland live. Yetta Kurland, listening.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Yetta Kurland Live. Happy Black History Month. I am your host, Yetta Kurland, and tonight we'll be speaking with the editor of the New Civil Rights Movement, David Badash, as well as Rachel Eve Stein from WIN NYC. I first want to thank our media partners, Go Magazine, Labor Press, the Soho Journal, Westview News, City and State New York, and the New Civil Rights Movement for helping make this show happen, as well as our community sponsors, The Ritz and Whole Earth Bakery. You can pick up a copy of Westview News at 69 Charles Street. Check out Go Magazine at your local newsstand or at gomag.com. The Soho Journal at sohojournal.com. The New Civil Rights Movement is at thenewcivilrightsmovement.com. And Labor Press is at laborpress.org. Also, you can listen to us live stream at WWRL1600.com. And please join us on Facebook at Yetta Kurland Live or on Twitter at Yetta Kurland. Also, check us out on the Huffington Post at huffingtonpost.com/Yetta. This week in the news, the British House of Commons passed a marriage equality law, and the Illinois State Senate came a step closer in doing so as well. The Baltimore Ravens, who won the Super Bowl, of course, including outspoken advocate for LGBT equality, linebacker Brendan, I never pronounce his name right, Ayanbadejo. Is that right?
That's very good.
Thank you. They won the Super Bowl 34-31 over the San Francisco 49ers, ironically including outspoken homophobe cornerback Chris Culliver. Ironic because they hail from the city San Francisco. And the town of Vico, Kentucky, population 335, voted to ban discrimination against anyone based on sexual orientation or gender identity. So it's not just urban settings in large cities. We're still working on this stuff here in New York State. Immigration reform took a big step forward as Barack Obama met with leaders from labor, LGBT communities, Latino and business communities about planning a way forward. And here in New York, people mourned the passing of three-term Mayor Ed Koch, a controversial and complicated figure, to say the least. We'll be talking about Ed Koch, marriage equality, the Super Bowl, women's empowerment, and much more here on Yetta Kurland Live. I'm delighted to have David Badash with me in the first segment. He's been an ongoing contributor, a regular here on Yetta Kurland Live. Please call in with questions for myself or David at 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. David is the founder and editor of the New Civil Rights Movement. It's a journal of news and opinions on gay rights and marriage equality. He's a regular contributor here at Yetta Kurland Live, and delighted to have him back on the show here tonight. If you've got questions or comments, give us a call, 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. David, thanks for coming back on with us tonight to talk about just stuff going on in the world.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, all things LGBT. I thought we'd do a little LGBT roundup. It's been a busy couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Head spinning, yeah. Should we start with the Boy Scouts?
Sure. Tell us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, last week everybody was incredibly excited because the Boy Scouts announced, as everybody probably knows, that they were considering dropping their national ban on gay scouts and gay scout leaders.
Right. I want to take the Super Bowl reference because of the Ravens thing, which we also get into. It's kind of like victory snatched from the jaws of defeat, but the inverse of that, right? Defeat,
exactly.
Well, but maybe not. We'll see what happens. So go ahead.
Okay. So today, they met today, and they were supposed to announce their decisions today, and they decided to take your football reference.
My inverse football reference and punt it, maybe.
And punt it and kick that ball down the field a little bit. They decided that they are going to postpone their decision and let basically delegate the decision to their 1,400 national members and let them vote in March as to whether or not they will drop their national ban.
In May, actually.
Is it May? I'm
yeah,
sorry. Okay,
which
May.
is even more concerning to me because I always feel like if you're at the brink of doing something really great and then you're like, wait, let's reconsider this for a few months. I don't know, is that good or bad for us?
Well, I think what we have to do is we have to look at what's behind it. What's behind it is the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church is actually
that can never be good.
Exactly. They're one of, if not the largest sponsors of Scout troops, and in Utah, they got together and they convinced the National Boy Scout Council to postpone the decision. Mm-hmm. They want to do some polling, which we have a new poll that came out today that says that 55% of Americans believe that gay people should be allowed in scouting. So that was a plus.
But setting polling aside, what about the concept of Brown versus Board of Education? Even if whatever you polled at, the majority should never take away the rights of the minority.
You're absolutely right. The legal and
I know I'm speaking legal mumbo jumbo. I apologize.
But legally you're absolutely right, and you would certainly know that. The Scouts won a Supreme Court decision saying that they had the right to discriminate, although it probably wasn't couched that way, but they had the right to discriminate any way they want because they are a private organization.
Right.
So they have the right. Technically, they have the legal right to do that. They don't have the moral right.
What got them? And Barack Obama, in fact, weighed in a very powerful way, saying that he supported the rights for all Scouts and all Americans to do and be able to do whatever they wanted. Right
before the Super Bowl aired, Barack Obama was interviewed, and he said he believes in that. He also said that in August, which a lot of people forget, and Mitt Romney also said during the campaign that he believes that
and Mitt Romney is a prominent leader in the Mormon community.
Exactly.
You would think that they would take a cue. It's unfortunate. So, and I think there was some question about whether or not, I guess what they were trying to do is to say, listen, we're not going to require you to discriminate. Each local chapter can decide to discriminate or not to discriminate. And now they're saying,
they were going to drop the you cannot be gay in the Scouts and let each individual troop decide.
I guess I'm trying to reassure my homophobic listening base, which probably is significantly small, that there is still there would still be an opportunity for local chapters to be able to discriminate.
Absolutely. There would be, and unfortunately it looks like there may be.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens in May, but you brought up the Super Bowl. That was pretty exciting.
That was an exciting game.
The reference I've been making is it's like the 70s. When was Billie Jean King and Billy Riggs? No, Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs did the tennis match of the War of the Gender, the Battle of the Sexes or whatever.
That's right.
And that was like this big kind of feminist underpinning to that. So I feel like this Super Bowl has had this kind of LGBT conversation or narrative. Like you said, Barack Obama coming out right before the Super Bowl to support gay Boy Scouts. And then obviously the Ravens, San Francisco 49ers, differences in terms of their positions on LGBT rights.
Absolutely. Well, it was amazing because the week before the Super Bowl, there were so few people talking about what commercials were coming. They were all talking about the LGBT aspect of it.
Who was weighing in where on what side of the LGBT issue.
Exactly. And then we had the two players from San Francisco who decided that they forgot that they had recorded an It Gets Better video.
Yes, let's slow down for 1 second for our listeners who may not be as aware of this. For the 7 of you who aren't aware of this, either because you watch Super Bowls or because you are up on LGBT issues. But Brandon, whose last name I can't pronounce correctly, one of the members of the Ravens football team came out in support of LGBT and I think specifically marriage equality. And then a local legislator in Maryland, in Baltimore, started attacking him for that position, hoping that it would make him retreat. And instead, his entire team, his producers, the entire team of the Ravens came out in support of him and in support of marriage equality and the LGBT community, which was really very powerful. Conversely, over in San Francisco, where you would think it would be easier to have those opinions, a couple of folks from the 49ers team came out against LGBT, made a couple of homophobic comments about not allowing the sweetness of gay people in the football on their football team, or saying some inappropriate things. when those guys were then told or reminded, like you said, that they actually participated in an It Gets Better video with Dan Savage, they said that they actually hadn't, and then when they were shown the It Gets Better video, they said, well, we thought that was only for bullying. We didn't realize that was for gay bullying. Now, of course, we want to stop all forms of bullying, race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. But isn't it a little bit concerning that in essence they're okay? They're not okay with other types of bullying, but they're okay with bullying for LGBT folks.
Yeah, definitely not an inclusive position, and just very embarrassing for San Francisco, for the 49ers.
I think it cost them the game.
It could have been, or it could have been Beyonce's show, just killing all the lights.
Beyonce's show was that why the lights were killed?
No, I'm making that up.
I thought Beyonce's show was fantastic. What did you think? Yeah.
I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. The only problem was that Chris Colfer was not there on stage when from his excellent Glee episode where he said, "Put a ring on it."
Yeah, but it was certainly well produced. So, and overall, I was delighted to see it. Although, and now I'm getting a little bit too much into football, but I was disappointed that they had to do the over thought out safety to get out of to waste time to actually win the game. I would have liked to see a much more clear cut victory, but I was very pleased overall. So, moving on. Again, I just want to let folks know, call in with questions or comments. We're talking and listening to David Badash from the New Civil Rights Movement here on Yetta Kurland Live, WWRL 1600 AM Equality Pride Radio. 212-868-0975 is the number. Again, 212-868-0975. Probably the biggest news this week is that Ed Koch, a 3-term mayor, before that a Congress member, a city council member as well, a longtime voice politician in New York City, passed away at the age of, I believe, 88, possibly somewhere in his 80s. How does that impact the LGBT community, and how did the LGBT community receive that news?
Yeah, this is possibly one of the most controversial issues when it comes to someone passing away that we've had. Ed Koch, and having been in this area for during that time, was certainly the iconic New York City mayor.
Yeah.
The problem is that a lot of people believe that he was gay,
right,
and a lot of people believe
including one of his boyfriends,
including one of his boyfriends. And although he denied it, he actually said that he is not gay, and that was the last time he ever touched the topic.
Right.
And
there's a great, sorry to interrupt, but there's a great picture of Larry Kramer holding the front page of the Daily News where Ed Koch says, "I'm a heterosexual," and Larry Kramer took that and he's standing there holding a poster that has the front page saying, "I'm a heterosexual and my name is Marilyn Monroe."
And there you go.
Yeah. Well, but but in general, in terms of policy,
This is the problem, and I think that if we look at the broader picture here, the problem is the closet, and the problem is that Ed Koch, and let's assume, for the sake of argument, that he was gay, as everybody believes he was gay,
or maybe he was bisexual,
or asexual, or non-sexual,
sexuality is
whatever.
Fluid, right?
Exactly.
Right.
But whatever he was, the belief is that because he absolutely refused to acknowledge it publicly, many New Yorkers died of AIDS because they did not get the treatment that they needed.
So you make a big leap there. He's not out. Let's assume he's a closeted elected official. How then does that result in people not getting treatment or attention on HIV and AIDS?
How many times have we heard of a politician, generally a Republican, but a politician who absolutely positively votes against every LGBT issue, and then it turns out that they're gay.
Yeah.
They are hiding, and they are so desperately hiding that they vote against not only our interests, but certainly their interests.
Right.
San Francisco spent a lot more money during Ed Koch's time on HIV/AIDS than New York City did, and that's a fact.
And arguably, to Koch's defense, I mean, initially he seemed to be very good, and I see our phone lines are lighting up, so we're going to take some callers in a moment. But Koch seemed very good on LGBT rights initially. He, as a Congress member, co-sponsored with Bella Abzug the bill to include LGBT folks in the 1964 Civil Rights statute. He did a lot of good stuff early on, and then it seemed to change when he became mayor. And it was at a critical point, a critical juncture, when we needed someone to be a voice on the epidemic, on the HIV and AIDS epidemic that hit, and New York City certainly was an epicenter. Let's go to one of our callers. We're going to take our first caller this evening is Pat from Rego Park. Pat, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air.
Hi.
How you doing?
Number one, great article on Ed Koch in the closet, Andy Hum at the Gate City News. So
yes.
If everybody could take a look at that, that would be great. I want to talk about Ed Koch during the AIDS crisis and how he had the chance to make a difference for, thousands of people, but he didn't, such as I remember back in the 80s going to Elmhurst General Hospital, going to Bellevue Hospital, where Health and Hospitals Corporation is directly under, the direction of the mayor, unlike Mount Sinai or St. Vincent's. And these were hospitals where nurses refused to walk into the rooms of people with AIDS, and food, I went and fed people.
Yeah.
Trying to get a nurse to, hi, come on down. I need somebody to change, the soiled linen. Well, we just changed it a half hour ago. Yes, but he has, problems, and he needs it changed again. And Ed Koch could have issued an executive order stating, treat these people with dignity.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
Yeah, you make a couple of really good points. And incidentally, Andy Hum's article is fantastic in the Gay City News. And I had the honor and privilege to be on Andy's show this week. It'll be airing, I think, next week. We talked about Ed Koch a lot. Pat, thanks so much for your comments. And I'll direct this question, David, to you. I mean, she makes a couple of good points. Health and hospital corporations, the mayor really has a direct line there. It's a city-run agency. Yeah. There's a lot that could have happened. But again, to put it in context, this was, Ed Koch was the mayor of New York City where there was a big epidemic. Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States. I mean, the backdrop of that, did it make a substantial difference in how HIV and AIDS was handled then, and has that had an impact today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question that thanks to Ed Koch and thanks certainly to Ronald Reagan, there was so little funding. When you have a problem, the thing you do is you attack the problem immediately. And when there's something that is that big, and that's clearly is that big, that you do not understand, you throw every penny you possibly can at it, and they threw nothing at it.
So looping back to your initial point, it's kind of interesting. I think what you're saying is the confluence of a mayor who happened to be unable for whatever reasons, and we can maybe be sympathetic. It must have been difficult at that time, and it's a different world, but it's still difficult. We're hearing reports. What was the young kid who just took his life last week? We hear reports of that all too often, so it's not like it's a walk in the park today. But he was a closeted mayor, and at that moment in time was this crisis that hit the LGBT community in terms of health care that some could argue has never, we've never seen since or before, and it was just the wrong time and the wrong place and the wrong confluence of events, and we kind of turned our back on a huge, tens of thousands of individuals, and we're still suffering from that today.
Absolutely.
Anything positive that you can remember about Ed Koch's tenure as a mayor?
Like I said, he's
a quintessential New Yorker, right?
He was the quintessential New Yorker, an iconic mayor.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I think put a face on New York City that it hadn't had before.
Yeah. Good. You are listening to David Badash here on Yetta Kurland Live, WWRL 1600. Call in with questions or comments. We're doing a little LGBT roundup this week. Lots of stuff happening. 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to go to our next caller, Ed from the Upper West Side. Ed, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You are on the air.
My call.
Thanks for calling.
I was going to ask. I will ask another question, but I just want to mention about Ed Koch.
Mm-hmm.
What he offered the city was he talked to the white ethnic groups in New York City. He was the only mayor who talked to them and who understood them. Now, that is not to justify many of the attitudes that were held in those communities. But Ed Koch understood them, and the tragedy is that he could have brought the city together because he understood the ethnics, so-called. I forgive that phrase. I hope I'm one myself. But he understood that feeling better than any other mayor. I opposed almost everything he did, however.
And you know, and I think it's not our place in his death, in his absence, to denigrate any public servant. Although I certainly understand, we can all understand the anger, the feelings towards him, especially those who were impacted by what many feel was poor judgment, poor decisions, and in essence turning his back on the LGBT community. Do you feel like he turned his back on the LGBT community in the city?
I don't. I think the governmental organization that did the most was the state health commissioner, who saw that coming, saw the problem coming better than anyone else, in my judgment, and took action where action was needed, and action was needed in many places, and where Ed Koch was sort of hung up on indecision.
Yeah.
The state health commissioner made decisions that had to be made.
Yeah.
And I think that was the one area that was helpful. The federal government was worth nothing under Ronald Reagan, and the city wasn't worth that much. But the state, near state health commissioner did a pretty good job, actually.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for calling in. You know, and Diane Feinstein was the person dealing with it out on the West Coast. Obviously, you know, helping with things like allowing needle exchanges to happen, things that were being fought for here in New York.
And there was a lot more funding in San Francisco than here.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's turn our attention to some good news. A lot of developments in marriage equality, both here and overseas. France and England pushing forward on some stuff. We're seeing some stuff here in the United States, Illinois, and the Edie Windsor case is heating up and moving forward. Why don't you give us a little update on all that stuff?
Sure. Well, first of all, 400 to 175 was the count in the
House
UK.
of Commons, yeah.
In the House of Commons.
Now it's not Ireland, it's not Scotland, but it is England
and Wales,
right.
And you know, the wonderful news in some respects is that this was largely initiated by a conservative.
Conservatives, yeah.
And marriage is a conservative value, believe it or not.
Like the Prop 8 judge in California, who was a longtime conservative Republican, who wrote one of the most feminist, inclusive, articulate, eloquent decisions on the Prop 8 matter a while back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there was a huge margin in favor of same-sex marriage in England, and it looks like it's going to happen. There are a couple of steps that need to happen.
That's right.
The House of Lords has to get involved. There are a couple of other things that have to happen, but it looks very promising. So I think that is an amazing thing.
Yeah. And then it goes back to the House of Commons, but again, with that kind of a margin, it seems likely. France is also doing good stuff, although they're trying to monkey with a bunch of amendments that they're throwing in there to slow it down.
Yeah, but I think 63% of I would say of Americans, it's obviously not Americans, it's of the French, support same-sex marriage. So there you go.
And they're too nuanced to get bogged down with 5,000 amendments. They're too smart for that.
I think so. I agree.
Good stuff. And back here on this side of the pond, what's going on over here? Edie Windsor. The Solicitor General Obama is thinking of weighing in. Tell us some of that good news.
You know, Edie Windsor, I'm sure all of your listeners know
She's
this.
lovely.
She is. I wish I could meet her. I have seen her videos.
We'll try to arrange that for you.
I would love that. I am such a fan of hers.
Yeah.
She is 83, I believe.
Is she? Yeah.
She had to give the IRS $363,000 because of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act.
Federal DOMA, yeah. So even though we have the right to marry here in New York State, it doesn't
her
do
marriage
anything for us
marriage
nationally.
is legally not recognizable.
Yeah.
And so hopefully the Supreme Court will weigh in. Now, very, very interestingly, the Supreme Court, as many people know, decided recently back in January to look at Prop 8 and to look at Edie Windsor's DOMA case. And then a lawyer that the Supreme Court hired to decide whether or not they actually had the right to look at DOMA, I believe, not Prop 8, but DOMA, said that the Supreme Court does not have the right to look at DOMA, and that John Boehner and his bipartisan legal advisory group, which has spent $3 million of your tax dollars defending DOMA, does not have the right to do that either. So whether or not the Supreme Court says
goes
yes,
back to the
right.
idea that states determine that kind of stuff, and it's so we'll see what happens. And in Illinois, they're a step closer to getting marriage equality out there. Obviously, Rahm Emanuel is a big supporter.
Yes, absolutely.
So
we'll see. We'll see.
What do you think about that?
I'm obviously hopeful and optimistic, but there are some things that can get in the way. So hopefully it'll happen.
Let's go to our next caller. A familiar name, Kathy Marino Thomas, big advocate, proponent for marriage equality. Kathy, thanks for taking time to call in to Yetta Kurland Live. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Yetta. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while, huh?
I know. I miss you. You've been out fighting the good fight for us.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. Tell us about, and I know that there's a bunch of stuff happening on March 26th and March 27th.
There is. I want to say hi to David first. How are you, sweetheart?
Kathy, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and I'll make sure you get that meeting.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you heard that, right? He wants to meet Edie Windsor.
Yeah,
Can you make that happen for him?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Listen, we're doing a lot of stuff around the country around the two dates, March 26th and 27th. 26th would be the day that they're going to listen to the Prop 8 case, and the 27th is Windsor. So we're doing something called Light the Way to Justice, and there's lots of information at lightthewaytojustice.org. We're partnering with Get Equal and a bunch of other grassroots organizations. Actually, people are joining daily. The idea is that you would create an event in your own area. There will also be a rally in Washington in front of the Supreme Court both days, the 26th and the 27th. But the real idea is that everyone, own this, and everyone show, bear witness to our right to pursue happiness in this way. And but people have all kinds of ideas. There's some vigils taking place in front of the courthouses in their own states. There's teach-ins. There's all kinds of things. People are coming up with lots of ways to show support for the two cases that the Supreme Court has decided to hear. So I hope that everyone will check out Light to Justice and daily, because things are evolving quickly. We're going to take a bunch of people out there to show support and show our families and talk to people in Washington and get the country to, see what it is that we're really talking about. I think it's going to be a beautiful show of both patriotism and, family unity and all the good stuff that we know that our community is representing. And
a celebration of civil rights. Now, are you worried, given the fact that, what's the recent numbers? It's certainly a majority. I think it's 51%, 52%. It's some majority of all Americans support marriage equality. Do you expect that because I'm assuming the anti-marriage people will be out as well.
Oh, yes, especially on the first day. I hear that we're going to have lots of company on March 26th. But I welcome them because really their arguments are not holding water. I believe in the Constitution of the United States, and I think that at the end of the game, it covers my family.
Well, it's certainly important that our quote-unquote side, although I don't think there's two sides to basic human rights, get out and mobilize and really make sure.
What we need to do is show the rest of the country that we believe in the founding fathers' philosophy for this country, and that we believe in our families.
Yeah.
It's time to stand up for ourselves, and I believe this is our time, and I do, Yetta. We've had many a conversation about this issue. It happens to be my favorite issue, but.
Well, we're lucky for that, and Kathy, we're lucky for all the work that you have been doing over the years.
Thank you very much. So I hope that people will join us and check lighttojustice.org. Get Equal's website, Marriage Equality USA's website for information about what's going on in their local areas.
Great. Keep us posted, and thanks for all your work, Kathy.
Sure will. Thank you. Good night.
Yep. We're going to try to just knock out a couple more calls because we have a bunch of people calling in, and we only have a few more minutes left. So I'm just going to go right to our next caller, Tim from Washington Heights. Tim, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You are on the air.
Hey, Yetta, this is Tim Moss.
Hey, Tim. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Listen, I just wanted to call just to throw some support. I don't really have a comment or question or anything.
All right.
I wanted to say hello to David Badash.
Hey,
How
Tim.
are you doing?
How are you?
Wonderful. Good to talk to you.
What's going on in your neck of the woods? So what did you make of the whole Ravens San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl? Did you watch it?
I missed the whole damn thing. Honey, I am so
Girl,
busy.
all right, well, there's a lot happening out there,
I didn't
Tim.
even watch Beyonce, if you can believe that.
Beyonce was tremendous. You really missed a show there. Yeah.
Well, I love the topics that I've heard so far, as far as like Mayor Koch and marriage equality and Catherine Moreno Thomas. And I love your show.
Well,
love what you're doing, David. I love what you're doing, Yetta. And I will see you on Saturday at.
Give a plug for that Saturday at the Bronx Community Center.
I am board for the new. To create a new Bronx LGBT center, and we're having our first fundraiser this Saturday, February 9th. And we will be auctioning off many people in the LGBT community for a dinner for two.
Great.
And Yetta Kurland is going to be one of them.
But they'll have to give me back after, right? Yeah, because you guys promised me that when we worked this out. Tim, thank you so much for all that you do. I will see you Saturday night. What's the website to go to if people want to get tickets or learn more? Valentine'sVamp.eventbrite.com.
I'm
getting nervous. I'll see you on Saturday.
I can't
Thanks
wait.
for calling in.
Love to both of you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Let's go. One more caller. Arthur from Manhattan. Arthur, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You are on the air.
Yes, Yetta. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I think I'm okay. I just want to say that Ed Koch was a horrible person on many levels. But no, I'm just saying, number one, we had a TB epidemic, and he suppressed it so that he could look better in the eyes of the administration and its administration. But my main comment is, and a question to both you and your guests, I kind of take umbrance with the fact that who cares if Ed Koch was gay? The fact is he didn't do what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I want to know from you both of you, because you admit to being gay, is there a process of selective outing? Because if you look at City Hall, they're in for the, oh my God.
Well, Arthur, first of all, no one knows that I'm gay, so you have just outed me here on live radio.
No, I read Go magazine.
I'm teasing. Arthur, I'm teasing.
Yetta, I read Go magazine. I read Go magazine.
It's too late for me. It's all over. You make a really, really good point, though. And let me actually kick it over to David.
Okay, I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for calling. He makes a good point. You know, who are we to out people to decide? Like we said, sexuality is fluid. People have a right to identify however they want to identify. Why is that relevant in this case? And maybe talk a little bit about the outing process, because it's not just Ed Koch. It starts to get in a slippery slope here with stuff that happens.
It is such an important issue, and as an editor and publisher, it's something that I face on a regular basis. My policy is that I will not out anybody unless they are harming our community. Mm-hmm. So if there's someone that is gay or bi or whatever, and they are not harming our community, they can go along with their lives however they like. But if there's a public figure who is gay and is harming our community, I feel very strongly that we have a responsibility to protect our community.
I mean, I think it's a complicated issue. I don't have a perfect answer to it. I do really respect people's privacy. Somebody who is often in the public world, it's certainly something that's important. At the same time, I think the connection with Koch was, I think you made the point really well, which is that maybe and perhaps, and that him not being able to be out, to be proud, to be himself, mm-hmm. to take up space, caused the feelings in the community that he kind of turned his back or wasn't there in the ways that he should have or could have been there. But we will never know. It's a complicated issue. David, thank you so much for coming on the show. As
Anytime,
always, thanks
pleasure.
for your thoughts, ideas,
thank
and input. We'll have you back again soon. Callers, I know you're online waiting to talk to us, and we will get back to you. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a few moments here on Yetta Kurland Live.
Have the power to change your world. Change your world. 1600 AM WWRL.
Spreading the word.
It's really about New Yorkers looking at us and saying we want equality.
Equality Pride Radio. 10 p.m. to 12 midnight on AM 1600 WWRL.
You can't have
handle the truth.
And we are back here on Yetta Kurland Live, WWRL 1600. Call in with questions or comments, 212-868-0975. Before we go to our next guest, which is Rachel Eve Stein, I want to actually take our next caller, Sarah from Manhattan, who's going to talk to us about an upcoming thing that's happening on Sunday related to the bus strike that's ongoing. Sarah, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Hanging in there.
Good, good, good. So tell me what's happening on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Well, there's going to be a march over the Brooklyn Bridge because a lot of us are feeling that the city's approach to the school bus, the contracts, is really picking on women and children in the city, mothers and fathers too, all families, all types of families who either can't get the children to school or can't get a paycheck because of this hard-headedness about negotiating for something that, is only fair, that the people who have put in the time can maintain their jobs and be a responsible leadership on the buses. So, why is the city being so tough with these guys? And what's the problem here? Why can't they come to some sort of agreement to help these workers out who like you said, work hard hours, they deserve decent pay? What do you think because they've been on strike now, Sarah, for like 3 or 4, I mean it's coming on to almost a month coming up soon. Right. Well, people don't go on strike in hard times in freezing weather unless really everything is at stake. So, we the parents don't really blame the matrons and the drivers for trying to defend their livelihood. We do feel better about having experienced people handle our children. And I think it's a trend where all the people who serve children, whether it's teachers or crossing guards, or these bus workers are the first ones being picked off by a mayor who rides in his climate control limousine and doesn't have to worry about it. Yeah. But our kids have rights to access to education, and we are going to fight for that, both for the short term of getting the negotiation going so the buses can get going. And also for the long term, we've actually have an organization called Parents to Improve School Transportation, or PIST. It's been advocating for a school bus bill of rights. So we're joining, I think it's going to be a lot of the public sector unions and just community people who are concerned, starting Sunday, 12:30 on the Brooklyn side of the Brooklyn Bridge and coming over. And, this affects a lot of communities of color in the city, a lot of Haitian American. This is one of those jobs that a working class family can get into, immigrants can get into. You don't have to be connected. You don't need a lot of degrees, but you are making an important contribution to the education of children with and without disabilities. Well, it's great to hear from a parent, and specifically that parents and families support the efforts for the bus drivers to, like you said, you want bus drivers who are in a union, who are trained, who have that kind of oversight, supervision, and care that they can give to your children as they transport your children to and from school every day. So it's 12:30 p.m. this Sunday, meeting at the Brooklyn side of the Brooklyn Bridge and marching over the Brooklyn Bridge to Manhattan? That's right, and and ending up at City Hall, I guess around the City Hall Park there for a program. Great. Well, we'll see you this Sunday. And Sarah, thank you so much for calling in. Thanks for your support and your efforts. And we'll help get the word out here. 12:30 p.m. on Sunday, this Sunday, in support of the ATU 1181 bus drivers who are on strike, going into their 4th week on strike, showing up, whether you're parents, whether you're children, whether you're community members, workers yourself, like you said, other members of labor, will all be out this Sunday at 12:30 p.m. on the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, and you know, this is a women's issue too, because it's, you know, that's your next topic.
That is my next. That's a great segue. Thank you so much. That's a great segue. So let me introduce our next guest, Rachel Eve Stein. She is a New York organizer and activist. Rachel is the membership director of the Women's Information Network on WIN NYC. They've got a lot of programs coming up this year. I'm delighted to bring her on the show to talk about it. If you've got questions or concerns or comments, 212-868-0975 is the number to call. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. Rachel, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So our last caller, I believe her name was Sarah, was saying that the bus strike and the issues around the big bus strike that's happening in New York is a women's issue. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about mothers. You know, a lot of times the responsibility of transportation for children falls on females, whether it's a biological mother or a caregiver. Tends to be female.
Yeah. You know, we've been talking a lot about mothers. Mothers are also very involved in the big gun reform movement, I think, post the recent incidences that have been happening. There's going to be a big Mother's Day march planned around that, and there's a Million Moms organization. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. 2012 was the year of the women. They say nationally we saw wonderful results in terms of the elections that came up with Elizabeth Warren, who else? Tammy Baldwin, Kirsten Sinema. Just some really incredible women being elected nationally. This year, Governor Cuomo has announced a very robust plan on a state level to talk about women's issues and women's equality. So it's obviously an important time, wouldn't you say, for women. And what's going on with the Women's Information Network?
Well, we have a lot going on. I should clarify. So we're a networking group. We are
not political.
Well, we are political. It's a networking group for democratic, pro-choice women. Anybody who identifies as a woman is welcome to join our group. And we kind of operate off of this Google group, like a listserv, and everybody just trades these jobs, events, you know, information, activism, volunteer stuff. And so through that, we've really cultivated this great community.
It really is. And there's an incredible, there's just a lot of different women from a lot of walks in life. It's utilized for everything from like job networking to political stuff to just so many different things. How have you been able, because I know a lot of people, a lot of women's organizations have tried to get that kind of momentum. What has made you guys so successful in terms of doing that?
I think it's really just this listserv and really just getting it out to everybody, spreading the word. And I mean, that's the idea. The whole thing is about networking, right? So I actually joined WIN NYC because I went to one of their launch event in New York City. We actually only launched in October of 2011.
And it's New York City specific, meaning there's not a WIN Chicago or a WIN something else in another city?
Well, that's a great question. WIN actually started in D.C. in 1989. It was after Dukakis was elected, or excuse me, after he lost. Living in my own little dream world here. After he lost,
a landslide victory.
I know. Oh yeah, it was great. It was great.
Dukakis, that's a name from at least I can't do that arithmetic on that, but at least 20 years, maybe probably 30 years ago.
Yeah. So a lot of the staffers from the campaign realized, female staffers, that they were having difficulty getting the jobs that their male counterparts were getting. So they banded together and decided to have this formal organization. And I mean, from there, it's just really, really grown. It's huge in D.C. And they decided to start their first satellite organization in New York City in 2011. So some people that had been involved in D.C. came over and started it here. And I think it's really just because of our culture, the way that we're very just inclusive of everybody, no matter how they identify.
A real commitment to the diversity and to tapping into the diversity, because women are in all of those communities, right?
Yeah, and I should mention that we have 6 different networks, and they are the Political Network, Arts and Culture, Women's Health, Women of Color, Pro-Choice, Media and Communications, and actually we are starting a queer network.
That's great.
Yeah.
Queer WIN.
Queer win.
Which is a win-win in my book.
Exactly. I wanted to.
I've been teasing Rachel all evening that I would be using that joke. So there it is. I hope it
win-win.
Yeah. But that's serious. But seriously, that's great. And how does something like Win or Win NYC or Win DC differ from, say, Emily's List or other progressive women's organizations interested in these issues?
Right. So in Emily's List or a lot of the other organizations,
Women's Campaign Fund,
right.
New York City Now or other organizations.
They tend to be purely political and only about electing female candidates or whatnot, which is extremely important, fantastic work that they all do. But this is really about getting women together that share the same values. And of course, we're political and we're pro-choice and we've got that down. But unlike the DC network, we are in New York City. We've got a lot of different people and a lot of different career paths. And the way that it's been so successful is that people they really want to get together and have these shared values.
A holistic approach to organizing women. You were listening to Rachel Eve Stein on the Women's Information Network NYC on Yetta Kurland Live, WWRL 1600. Call in with questions or comments, 212-868-0975. Rachel, let's go to some of our callers right now. We're going to go to Allie from Manhattan. Allie, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
My question is one of the biggest barriers to entry for women in New York City politics is getting involved in local Democratic clubs. They're mostly dominated by men, and, to people who aren't in the inner circle, many don't even know that those clubs exist. What do we do to bring more women in at the very local level to politics?
It's a really, really good question,
That's
especially because it doesn't have. I think what you just explained about speaking to women and the breadth of what goes on for women, that they are interested in arts and all these different things and connecting on all these different levels, probably doesn't happen as much in the traditional Democratic clubs, and men more seem to be in the leadership positions. How do we change that trend, or how do we change that type of doing politics in New York?
Allie, that's a really great question. I'm a fan of going really from the inside. And actually, Manhattan Young Democrats, they have a women's committee, and kind of modeled after that, I started one in the Brooklyn Young Democrats, to, bring these issues into the forefront. And I think that's really the way to do it, is to just go in and make yourself heard. And perhaps if you're going to a club, bring some other friends with you that feel the same way. Because I think in a lot of ways, it's really a numbers game. And when you're looking at these clubs, a lot of these clubs aren't too big. It's not like you're bringing 2 people into a room with 200 people. If you just get together a bunch of active people to really come in
and maybe you use the Win NYC network to find other women who would be interested in helping.
We do advertise those opportunities often.
Tell us about your new queer network. How do people get involved if they're listening? They want to get involved either in that network or other stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah, definitely. So the queer network, we're currently looking for 2 co-chairs. There's 2 co-chairs for all the other
opportunity
networks.
Right here.
Opportunity, right? Always opportunities to get involved. And the networks are definitely expanding. Right now they do quarterly events, but we're looking to grow the leadership there, into, more regular meetings, things like that. But if you want to join the Google group, that's our nucleus, I guess. The Google group is win.nyc, so you can search that on Google. If you have any questions for me or any of the other ladies on eBoard, I got to give a shout out to Jill Palmer, Monica Foskett, and Nicole Stipp. You can reach us at nycec@winonline.org. We're also on Facebook.
Great.
Yep.
As Win NYC?
As it's Win NY City. So it's facebook.com/Win NY City.
Great. Approximately how many women are involved in your network in New York City?
At this point, it's over 570.
Wow. And growing.
Yeah, and growing.
Great. Let's go to our next caller, Tom from Hell's Kitchen. Tom, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air. You there? Tom, go.
Hello?
Yep, Tom.
Hey, what's up, Yetta?
Tom, how you doing?
Good. See, I was watching American Idol today, and I said, you know what? I have to call into Yetta's show because she's my American Idol.
You say that to all the girls, but thank you. Thank you so much.
I wanted to call and just show you some love from Hell's Kitchen and, let you know that we all appreciate the amazing job that you do and,
Great.
that you got so much support on your side, and
well, thank you.
You're doing a really, really, really great job.
Thank you. Well, thanks for all the work that you're doing as well. And keep up the good work, and we'll hear from you again soon.
Yes, making babies. That's the work I do.
Is that your work now? Okay. Do you know you're having a baby soon, right?
2 months.
Wow.
2 months.
Do you know if it's do you know the gender, if that matters? And
in 2 months we're having a baby boy. His name is going to be Rocco Thomas Greco.
He sounds like a slugger.
He sounds like a masonry helper, right?
Well, congratulations, and we'll hear from you again soon.
Guys.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
so much.
you.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, great. So, do you? So the people who are able to join are pro-choice Democratic women. Do you ever try to get people who are not pro-choice to join or to do anything to try to increase? I mean, it sounds like every Democratic woman should be pro-choice.
Right.
Like those three requirements seem to be pretty fairly aligned, but is it that you often find that that's not the case? I imagine in D.C. you probably would have more of a problem with that, but in New York, do you really find that you have to exclude women, or that there's an issue in terms of that?
You know, it really hasn't been that much of an issue because this is New York City. But, I have come across some people, I give them the card and I explain what it is and they kind of hand me the card back.
Aww.
And that's a little awkward.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it really is semantics. A lot of people really are pro-choice that don't realize it. They just, they say, oh, well, I wouldn't have an abortion myself,
right.
But whoever wants to,
they should do their own
so
thing,
sometimes right. I'll try to engage with them and say, oh, well, that's what it's about. But, we generally don't try to do too many persuasive things.
And I just think it's incredible. Speaking of semantics, feminism. The word feminism is it intergenerational? I don't know. Is this day and age? Is it cool to be a feminist in 2013 for the younger generation of women?
I think it's cool. I think most of the women in WIN would think it's cool, and most of the people I know. But
what about most of the women in the political circles?
I think it's a scary word still for a lot of people. In such a male-dominated space.
Right.
Women are definitely still. They don't want to be typecast, or they don't want to be seen in a certain way.
What do you think the most important issue is for women in New York City, on a local level in New York City? What's the most important or pressing issue, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a big one.
Or one of the most important.
One
issues.
of the most.
I mean, you already talked about the absence of women in terms of representation.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was sort of going with.
One of the things I often say is the city council is the lowest rung on government, local government, and it's usually local government where women are more represented. I was shocked to discover that only a third of the members of New York City Council are women, and we're losing a number of those in this next sea change of the elections that are happening in 2013. Yeah. But is there anything other than that? Is there another issue besides that that's important for local folks? Or what would you say to women who maybe aren't that politically inclined? Why should women get involved in the political process?
I mean, I would just, for us, it's all about choice. And although this is not, Alabama or, some other...
there's lots of,
yeah.
You'd be surprised.
That's where I was going,
Sorry, I keep jumping on your stuff. Go ahead.
No worries. No.
It's not Alabama, as you were saying.
No, it's not. It's, even though we're not, it's still a blue state, there's a stigma to getting an abortion. It's still extremely difficult to find.
Even in New York City, there are people protesting outside of abortion clinics.
Absolutely.
And there are big efforts in New York State from the Republicans to push back on choice.
And birth control and everything.
Yeah.
And so if we don't pay attention, then, these rights could go away, whether that's through lack of funds.
Yeah.
That's something, it's hard to, it's not tangible, when you think about just money, but when money goes away, then things go on the
services
chopping
go
block.
away. And my last question, because I know we're out of time, but again, on a generational issue, so you're a member of the Brooklyn Young Dems and involved in WIN. Do you think that women of your age just assume that birth control, that reproductive rights are going to be there for them. Maybe women from prior generations, women who were around before Roe v. Wade or during that time, have more of a sense of that as being an earned right. Do you think that one of the problems that we're having in the fight on pro-choice issues is that women of this generation kind of just assume, and when you say there's this assault on women's reproductive rights, right, they're like, okay, whatever that means, but I'm sure I'll still have whatever rights to reproductive freedom?
I think it's really, it's about whether you've had experience with the system. I think for a lot of women that have actually gone through the process of getting an abortion or, going to clinics and whatnot, they might think a little bit differently and they might see the problems in the system. But I do think a lot of women who maybe haven't had to go through that,
take it for granted.
I don't want to speak for other people, right, but I think this past year everyone really woke up, and if you weren't directly affected by the system, you really thought about it, and you realized that, oh my gosh, this could actually go away. This is real.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for coming on the show. Thanks for talking about the work that you're doing. Are there any events coming up that people need to know about?
Yeah, definitely the Millennials in the Movement Working for Choice. That's an event for our Pro-Choice Network. That's coming up on February 19th, 6:30 p.m. at Women's E-News on 6 Barclay Street. Again, if you want more information on that, you can join our Google group, win.nyc. You can find us on Facebook, Win NY City. You can also email nycec@winonline.org.
Great. An important service, a vital service for women here in New York City. Rachel Eve Stein, thanks for coming on the air with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Yetta Kurland Live. We'll be back at you next week on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. here on WWRL.
The preceding program is independently produced. The views and opinions expressed were those of the program host and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of WWRL, its staff, or management.
Because Kate switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on car insurance, her purse wants to do some cartwheels. Maybe 3 or 4 in a row. But it can't. It's a purse. Doesn't have the hand-eye coordination for cartwheeling. Switch to Geico, and every time you notice some extra cash, you'll know your purse wants to do some cartwheels. But remember, it can't, because purses don't cartwheel. It is, however, happy that you're saving money. Geico.